Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories.
A man entering into a relationship with a married woman is always afraid of being caught by her husband. But unfortunately, it's only a matter of time before the truth comes out. My wife tried to hide her affair, causing our marriage to suffer more with each lie, which eventually led to devastating consequences for her. I tried my best to dismiss the strange feeling that crept up on me last weekend when I was next to Lola, my wife, with whom I have been together for 15 years. There was definitely something wrong, although I couldn't determine what it was. We spent the weekend as usual, but there was a noticeable change in the air. Even during the short meeting the following Wednesday, this feeling did not leave me. No matter how much I looked, I couldn't find anything unusual or strange either in the bedroom or in my relationship with Lola. But this feeling did not leave me, remaining a real mystery that forced me to start an investigation. There was no doubt that Lola was the reason for this feeling. Perhaps there was a logical reason why I felt the need to ask her about something that she might find too trivial to mention. This opportunity presented itself the next evening when our children were busy with their favorite TV show and Lola and I were sitting in the living room, reading newspapers. "I've noticed that you haven't been yourself lately. Is everything okay?" I asked cautiously. She hesitated for a moment. A hint of concern flashed in her eyes, but then she quickly waved it away, laughing. "What are you talking about?" "It's okay," she replied, trying to shrug off my concern. But I felt that something was bothering her very much, so I continued cautiously. "Don't lie to me. If something is wrong, we'll get through this together," I reassured her, emphasizing the importance of teamwork in overcoming difficulties. "I'll figure it out anyway," I said. A quick glance revealed her true emotions, contradicting her words. "If I had any problems, I would have told you. Didn't we always tell each other about our problems?" she assured me. "Yes, and I believe that it will always be so," I replied. When we finished talking, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed between us. I couldn't help thinking that she might be having financial difficulties that she didn't want to burden me with. Despite the improbability of her involvement in gambling, it occurred to me that maybe she made some bad investments or lent money to someone who couldn't pay it back. While she was sleeping, I logged into all our bank accounts via a secure internet connection, but everything was fine. Yet, the feeling of unease did not leave me. If it wasn't a financial problem, then the only possibility was something that, as it always seemed to me, could only happen to other people, but not to me. For 15 years, I, Tommy Johnson, and Lola, my wife, had lived in what seemed to me a happy marriage. Lola never showed any signs of unhappiness, and I assumed she was happy too. We had 2 wonderful children, a boy of 12 and a girl of 10, a cozy house in the heart of a Scandinavian city, excellent relationships with loved ones, reliable work, and financial stability throughout our marriage. Fortunately, we avoided serious quarrels and had fewer minor disagreements than other couples we knew. So, I was very surprised when I started to feel that something was wrong, especially in intimate moments. The thought crept into my head that she might be cheating on me, and I felt uneasy. I couldn't ignore the feeling that maybe she was struggling with a sense of guilt that she couldn't completely hide. Now the question of why she could betray me and with whom it could happen had become acute. The next day, Friday, marked the beginning of my search for the lover of the companion of my life. I went to an electronics store. The seller, about my age, listened carefully to my requirements and offered 2 devices from the latest line of compact Japanese digital voice recorders with sound activation, ideal for continuous use. Although they were expensive, their functionality made them a profitable investment, especially since having 2 devices allowed me to listen to one of them while using the other. I planned to use the recorder in her car, which I cleaned regularly on Saturdays. I wasn't stupid enough to assume that she would betray me in her humble Toyota Yaris, but it was her private hideout where she could have private conversations on her cell phone without fear of being overheard. Later that Friday evening, a mysterious man from China provided me with another piece of the puzzle. While browsing the evening tabloid, I came across a short article about a Chinese husband who caught his wife with a lover. I retold this story to Lola, warning her that if I ever found out she had a lover, I would not resort to extreme measures, as the man in this story did. On the contrary, I would make his manhood suffer, not his life. Fear showed on her face, and she screamed, asking if I suspected her of having a lover. In a fit of anger, I began to ask why she was so upset, because I only said if, not when, I would find her lover. "You accuse me of deceit and unreasonable actions," Lola protested. "I'm not accusing you of anything, but I'm surprised by your violent reaction to my vow to protect you from any womanizer who tries to harm you. Didn't you always think that such people should be punished?" I asked. She angrily left the room without saying another word, and I realized that I would not be able to spend the weekend with her. Lola exuded sophistication. She had a talent for dressing stylishly, with a feminine twist. Even at the age of 39, she continued to be considered a charming woman in the production company, although her younger colleagues boasted a more traditional beauty. Lola's charm was incomparable. She was still the one preferred to be invited to dance at corporate events, demonstrating grace and self-control. In addition to her physical attractiveness, Lola had a sharp mind and eloquence in meetings, which led to her well-deserved promotion and a salary slightly higher than mine. Despite the difficulties we faced, it was admirable that Lola had always stayed away from infidelity. She distanced herself from any family ties with one of my close friends, who reconciled with his wife after she left him for a football star. Lola looked at him not with sympathy, but with contempt. I realized that I had fallen into a dangerous trap, and only unfavorable outcomes loomed on the horizon. In the worst-case scenario, I could find her lover, get into a violent altercation with him, end up in prison, and eventually lose Lola. After reflecting on the situation, I realized that there were no easy options. One option was to track down the guy, talk to Lola, and try to convince her to break up with him and forgive her. But I knew this could make me look weak in her eyes and lead to even more resentment. Another option was to convince Lola to break up with her lover before I found him and pretend that everything was fine. But would I still feel like a man after going through such humiliation? This option was slightly better, but still far from ideal. Everything was complicated by the fact that Lola didn't like cheating unless there was a deep emotional connection with another person. If she really had feelings for someone else, she would have pursued him decisively, perhaps even leaving me and marrying him if the opportunity presented itself. The next day, I began to thoroughly clean and tidy Lola's car, a job that was not part of my weekly routine. While working, I came across an old receipt hidden in an ashtray among a stack of past parking tickets, which aroused my curiosity and led to even more questions about Lola's recent activities. The receipt was from a gas station on the outskirts of the city and indicated a purchase made the previous Tuesday. It included a bottle of shower gel and a bottle of Coke. It seemed strange to me that she went shopping on her lunch break, especially when there were many shops along her usual route from work to home. The brand of shower gel was unfamiliar to me, which made me wonder if she needed it urgently that day. Just behind the gas station was a budget motel, known for being used by men who cheat on their wives. Thinking about the possibility of revealing the identity of the elusive figure I was chasing, I couldn't help but worry that my own marriage might soon suffer the same fate. On Tuesday evening, Lola tried to inject some humor into our strained relationship by jokingly asking, "Have you found my lover yet?" Instead of the expected answer of a simple no, I found myself hesitating. "Not yet, my love, but the birds are humming a sad tune," I said. "What are you implying?" she exclaimed, expressing her concern. "Only the truth. An anonymous source informed me about you," I replied, referring to your reputation as a person who despises deceivers. She panicked. You could see it in her eyes. "Do you really believe in such absurdities?" Lola asked nervously. "I don't usually do this, but your recent strange actions have made me worried. Why would a gossip lover like your lover not brag about such a juicy story?" "But I sincerely hope that this is just idle chatter," I said. It was obvious that after my conversation with her, our marriage began to seem more distant. I deliberately planted seeds of doubt in her mind, hoping that she would scold her lover for his brazen chatter. She knew about my suspicions, but she wasn't sure how much I knew or who had told me. On Saturday morning, I took the opportunity to wash her car and quietly replaced the radio with an empty one while Lola and our daughter were running errands to the supermarket. I was eagerly listening to the recording, but to my disappointment, only one call had been made all week, and it didn't provide any useful information. The conversation didn't reveal the identity of the interlocutor. Neither her lover nor I were mentioned. Instead, the conversation was about buying a birthday present for someone else. The only intriguing detail was her cryptic complaints about unspecified problems. Another Saturday night passed without any physical connection between us. The lack of intimacy in my marriage was becoming unbearable, and I knew I had to solve this problem. Despite the fact that my wife showed no obvious signs of cheating. For example, she didn't dress provocatively, work late, or receive mysterious phone calls. I could not get rid of the feeling that she was unfaithful. I was tormented by suspicions and uncertainty about how to express my fears. They were so insidious that I couldn't find any hard evidence. On Sunday morning, I decided to put aside my ego and offer her one last chance to save our marriage. I told her, "I need to talk to you about something very important. Could you listen to me without interrupting?" She agreed. "Our relationship is clearly in a deplorable state, but I love you so much that I'm ready to do anything to fix it," I began. "Although I have serious suspicions that you are unfaithful, I am willing to offer you a chance at reconciliation. If you are ready to end the affair and reveal the identity of your lover, I will forgive you both and commit to moving on without discussing this issue in future disagreements. This is a crucial moment for us to save our marriage, and I'm giving you this opportunity. Please take 1 hour to think about it and give your answer. A simple yes or no is enough." After a moment of silence, she looked at me and spoke. "Nice try, Tommy, but I don't need an alibi because I don't have a lover, and I have nothing to confess. You can either love me or leave me. I'm getting more and more tired of your constant accusations, and soon I won't care what you decide," she replied wearily. Lola played a cunning game, delaying time in her marriage until she found the right moment to leave me. Despite my belief in her infidelity, I waited to file for divorce until I had concrete evidence. Deciding to reveal the identity of my wife's secret lover, I discreetly placed the recorder in the living room and quietly left the house. I decided to drive to a nearby lake and take a leisurely stroll along its winding paths, thinking about Lola and our relationship. We had been together for 17 years, and for most of that time, I thought we were happy. Of those 17 years, we were married for 15. Despite the fact that she recently stated that she didn't want to save our marriage, she had made her feelings clear. Our first meeting was not at all traditional. Lola, who had recently arrived in the area, placed a small advertisement in the local newspaper in search of a life partner. My friends took the trouble to respond on my behalf, knowing that I was back on the lookout after a string of short-lived affairs. To my surprise, Lola contacted me directly, after which a phone conversation took place that led to our first date. It was obvious that our date went well, as we found common ground from the very beginning. Our strong relationship, which has lasted for more than 17 years, shows that we support each other in difficult times. After enjoying a leisurely lunch in the city, I went to work as a civil engineer for a reputable real estate company. I was currently working on a project that involved the thorough restoration of a charming old house in the city center. After a long day at work, I wanted to relax by drinking a couple of glasses of wine. After leaving a note saying that I was working on Sunday and would stay late on Monday, I went to one of my favorite pubs to relax and recuperate. I was surprised to find that there were more people there than usual on Sunday evening, and I was glad to see familiar faces among them. As a result, we found seats together and had a great time chatting. To my surprise, there was even a guy from the electronics store where I bought my dictaphones. He came up to me and asked how I was doing. After learning about my difficulties, he expressed sympathy and then asked about my wife's mobile phone. I told him the make and model, and he assured me that we were lucky. The Flex Trojan could have been installed on the phone. He even gave me the website address of the company in Thailand that sold this program. I thanked him for his advice and gave him a whiskey. When I turned on my phone, I didn't find any missed calls or messages from Lola, which indicated that she hadn't been worried about my whereabouts during the day. She pretended to be asleep when I got home after midnight and didn't bother to wake me up in the morning when she got out of bed. As soon as Lola left for work and the child went to school, I checked the recorder. Lola had a habit of sitting in her favorite armchair in the living room and using a mobile or wireless phone from the kitchen. Luck was on my side this time. She called her best friend Annie. To my surprise, at the beginning of their conversation, which lasted more than half an hour, she seemed to be sobbing. Lola confessed to Annie that I had ruined her romantic love story. She and her friend, as she called him, decided to wait 3 months before making a final decision about the divorce and whether to continue their relationship or end it altogether. But somehow, I found out about their plans and threatened that I would cause him serious harm if I found out his identity. After Annie comforted Lola, Lola asked if she had told Dan anything about her affair. It was clear from Annie's actions that she was trying to persuade Lola not to tell Dan anything so as not to ruin her marriage. Lola offered a reasonable compromise, but Annie rejected it, refusing to admit that she was wrong because she believed she would figure it out on her own and no one had the right to interfere. It was very disappointing to see that Lola behaved in such a disgusting way, but the shock and the facts didn't end there. Lola asked Annie about the duration of her affair with Monkey. Obviously, Dan was in the dark because Lola assured Annie that she had not told anyone anything and swore to remain silent from now on. The rest of their conversation was typical female chatter, which was of no interest to me. But my mood improved significantly because now a plan had formed in my head on how to bring everything to light and find out who my wife was having an affair with. Monkey had worked for several years as a goalkeeper for one of the best football teams in our first division. He claimed that he got his nickname after participating in a stupid and unsuccessful banana weight loss contest organized by a women's magazine. He boasted of being a charmer with an impressive physique. Now, at the age of 40, he was the successful owner of one of the best hotels in the city. Not a bad choice for a wife looking for extramarital excitement. I've known Dan since high school, but I don't like him because he's a boastful jerk who managed to steal my beautiful girlfriend, Annie, from me when we were 18 years old. The only reason I see him sometimes is because he is married to Lola's best friend, and our children are the same age. I was sure he liked learning about Lola's infidelity from Annie, but now it was my turn to get even. I called him at work, switching to a friendly tone. "How's your morning going?" I asked. "Okay, thanks. How can I help you, Tommy? Isn't that what friends are for, after all?" I heard Annie blabbed about Lola's new hobby. "Do you want to tell me who caught her attention this time?" asked Dan sarcastically. "Actually, it's you," I replied angrily. "This can't be happening. I don't know anything about it. I didn't even think she was capable of such a thing. One thing is for sure, this time it's not me," Dan said with a tremor in his voice. "I'm not accusing you, my dear friend," I began. "I know that Annie is well aware of the situation. I trust Annie, and I know she doesn't keep secrets from you. Of course, she told you about Lola's infidelity." "No, I swear she didn't do it, but I'll try to gather more information and call you as soon as I have something," Dan said. "Are you refusing to share with me?" I asked rudely. "Why should I care who your wife is involved with? I have my own wife, and that's enough for me," he replied. "How about we exchange information? You share it with me, and I'll share it with you." "Great job, my friend. Unfortunately, I don't have any information that I can share with you," Dan chuckled. If this fool thought he could intimidate me, then it was time to deal with past grievances. "I have information," I replied. Lola informed me that Monkey and Annie had a surprisingly romantic relationship that lasted for 2 whole months. "Did you even know when he was dating her?" Dan abruptly ended the conversation, leading me to assume that he harbored the same dislike for me as I did for him. I went to the website of a mobile phone software provider located in Thailand, made the payment, and successfully downloaded the Flex program to my phone. After clearing the recorder's memory and rebooting it, I took all the necessary actions before leaving home for work, including sending messages to my children so they would know that I would not be home all night. I packed my travel bag and set off, feeling a slight improvement in my mood compared to the previous day. My phone was silent throughout the whole working day. After leaving the house, I headed to the motel where I suspected Lola and her lover were staying. I booked a room for the night and realized that I needed to buy shower gel when I was planning to relax before dinner. My thoughts were interrupted by Annie's angry voice. I picked up the phone and heard her screaming, accusing me of being a scoundrel and asking why I had done this to her. Confused, I asked, "What did I do?" "You are fully aware of the consequences of your actions. Your behavior is despicable. You played a major role in the breakdown of my marriage. Why did you decide to hurt me so much? Annie asked with tears in her eyes. Instead of blaming me, I said, direct your anger at Dan. He deliberately tried to shame me and taunted me for being a cuckold. I had no choice but to defend myself. I continued. Dan was hospitalized after provoking a fight at the hotel and now lives with his parents. It's all because of you. Are you aware of the consequences of your actions? What are you planning to do to fix the situation? Annie was talking, almost shouting into the phone. Why should I deal with the consequences of your actions? I asked. I tried to be honest, and I said that every problem has a solution. Just tell me about the person associated with Lola, and I can help you. Stupid snake. Do you really think I'm that gullible? I hate your disgusting wife, but I despise you even more. You can chase your demons by yourself without my help, she said with disdain. Good. And the last thing I want to tell you, Annie, is that I've always dreamed of being with you. Can we do this now that we're both free? I asked. Her reaction was truly amazing. Without saying a word, Annie just hung up the phone. I braced myself for a potentially angry call from Lola, but to my relief, she didn't contact me that evening. Turning to my old army buddy Benny for advice on how to behave in a situation and when I met Lola, I decided to apply some of the skills I learned while serving in the army. Despite the fact that I was not a member of any elite Green Beret unit, I served as a corporal at a mobile gas station. Since mobile gas stations were in minimal demand during my service, we spent most of the day in the garage workshop, whiling away the time playing cards with the guys from the transport squad. Benny was a unique person with a wide range of connections who could fix almost anything. But one day, he got into a difficult situation. Two charming friends invited us to a summer house for the weekend, and Benny took responsibility for the drinks. The only problem was that none of us had any cash. Benny remained calm and assured me that he had a plan to deal with the situation. On a dark night, we stealthily made our way to a quiet suburban neighborhood where Benny had chosen a house. With the help of a clever technique, he was able to unlock the front door and persuaded me to follow him inside, where the family was sleeping soundly. I was relieved to find a bottle of whiskey and 2 bottles of wine in the kitchen cupboard, which allowed us to leave quickly. When we returned to the street, I promised myself that I would never behave like this again, but the penetration skills were very useful to me. I had to repeat the process of breaking into a house where people were sleeping in order to complete an errand. Fortunately, it was my own house, and I had a key. I parked in a public parking lot in our neighborhood, not very far from my house. Upon arrival, I found Lola's cell phone hidden in her purse. I quickly brought it to my office, looked through the numbers and messages, most of which were deleted. After installing the Trojan program unnoticed, I took the dictaphone from the living room and disappeared without a trace. Back at the motel, I eagerly listened to the recording on the device. To my surprise, I won the lottery again. While playing the recording, I heard Lola pick up the phone and tell the caller that I was not at home, expressing her indifference to my whereabouts. There was anger in her voice as she continued to speak. What are you talking about anyway? It's all not true. I've never talked to him, Lola told the caller. Didn't you hear what I said? Asked Annie. Are you accusing me of lying? Or is it my fault? Lola replied. You're completely crazy, Annie said disgustedly. I must have lost Tommy, and you're a fool mourning someone like Dan. I don't want to see you anymore either, Lola said with disdain. Lola seemed to understand that everything had consequences. Even after realizing it on Sunday morning, she still thought her affair was worth the trouble it had brought. After she rejected my attempt to reconcile our differences, I thought that Lola's friendship with my friend might offer her a brighter future than I could provide. Perhaps this influenced her decision to end our unhappy marriage in search of improvement. This theory could help clarify her actions. The next morning at 9 o'clock, I made a breakthrough. When I went to the site where the Trojan program saved messages from Lola's phone, I found a text that she had sent to her lover. I look forward to your return to the city. Our problems continue because Tommy has heard rumors that I may have a lover, although he does not know about your existence. Please be careful because Tommy has threatened to harm anyone he recognizes as my lover. I keep you in my heart and can't wait for us to be together again. Lola. The message ended. I checked the telecommunications company's website and saw that the number I needed was not on the list. Despite this, I decided to try a little trick and dialed the number. The man answered and introduced himself as Tom. The situation was ridiculous because his name was Thomas, which sounded like mine, Tommy. Good morning, Tom. Congratulations. You have won a 6-month free subscription to our newly equipped gym. Could you please provide your name and address? The subscription will be mailed to you within a few days, I said, posing as a gym membership salesman. This is the third call from a seller this morning. Take your card and shove it, he grumbled, clearly annoyed by the influx of annoying calls. Although I hadn't made a deal yet, I knew I had caught the culprit. In the end, I inevitably had to resolve this situation. In the afternoon, when I was running errands in the city, I looked into the courthouse to settle some business. After returning from work, I met Lola for the first time since Sunday morning. She was clearly upset. As soon as she entered the house and we met in the kitchen, she started screaming. "Why did you mix Annie up with dirt?" she yelled. "I didn't do anything with Annie," I said in disbelief. "Didn't you tell me that she was having an affair with Monkey?" asked Lola. "How could I know about this?" I shrugged. "Why did you tell Dan about this and then turn around and accuse me of sharing information with you?" exclaimed Lola. "Dan was acting weird and joking that you were cheating on me, so I had to stop him. I only mentioned you to protect the true source," I replied. "Why didn't you ever tell me about Annie? Do you have many secrets?" After processing the conversation, I said, "Lola, your behavior has been getting out of control lately, and I'm sick of it. If you don't stop this nonsense immediately, I'll go to a divorce lawyer." "Fine," I replied just as rudely. "That's the most meaningful thing you've said in a while." She chuckled. "Today, I received the divorce papers from the court, and we can file them together later," I said quietly. It was clear that she finally understood how much pain her infidelity had caused me, and that my decision to divorce was sincere. Her face paled as she whispered, "Can't we both take a break to calm down before doing something we'll regret later? Why didn't you take a break to collect your thoughts and think about the consequences before getting involved in a relationship with Tom? And why did you refuse the kind offer I made on Sunday morning? Why didn't you show any concern, especially when it was the last opportunity to save our marriage?" I said angrily. At the mention of Tom, her face sagged and tears flowed down her cheeks. "What about our children in our house? We are not the only couple going through a breakup. Why not try to see the positives in this? Now you have the freedom to spend all the time you want with your beloved Tom." I replied dismissively. "I will do my best to deal with him," I said. "It's impossible," she whispered. "No, it's possible. I made a commitment, and you know that I always fulfill it," I replied quietly. She ran, screaming, out of the kitchen and headed for the bathroom. I went into the living room and started working on the divorce papers. About 15 minutes later, she came up to me abruptly. "Did you talk about hurting Tom?" she asked. This question immediately aroused my suspicions, and I watched her closely. I noticed a strange bulge between her breasts, under her blouse. It suddenly occurred to me that this was her mobile phone, which was probably used to secretly record our conversation. Keeping calm and friendly, I replied, "I'm sorry, but I have no idea who this Tom is or why I would want to hurt him." "Well, you started talking about him yourself. Why should I know anything about him?" I asked. "Because you accused me of having an affair with him," she said. "A novel?" I asked. It was hard for me to believe it. She realized that I was laughing at her attempts to gather evidence against me in connection with Tom. She left the living room again, and I retired to my office for the rest of the night. When I checked her phone activity again, I found that she had received a message from her lover and had replied to it. It was a message from Tom. "My love, I missed you so much while I was with Cecilia all last week. Every night, I couldn't stop thinking about you. I'm looking forward to our upcoming meeting. As for Tommy, in my opinion, he only talks but does not act. Let's keep our plans a secret until they come to fruition. As always, yours, Tom. Dear, our situation has escalated. Tommy should not be underestimated. He intends to do harm if he gets the chance. He has already started divorce proceedings and ruined my friend's marriage because of her affair. My love for you is still strong. My marriage broke up because of this Tommy, and now it's my turn to ruin my relationship with Cecilia." Apparently, his wife, Lola's lover, was becoming more and more real. Although I still only knew his name or pseudonym, I was sure of my imminent victory. When I returned to bed, Lola was already asleep. The next morning, she refused to sign the divorce papers that I had prepared the day before. I was not bothered by her absence, as I was sure that the divorce would take place within 6 months, regardless of whether she would cooperate or object. I did not hesitate to submit the necessary documents to the court. In a conversation with my secretary at work, I talked about my despair over the relationship between my wife and her lover, Tom. She offered me her support and called him, putting him on speakerphone so I could eavesdrop on the conversation. When Tom answered with his usual hello, she introduced herself as Jennifer and asked to speak with Eric, as she needed to talk to him urgently. "Eric's not here right now," Tom answered on the phone. "It looks like he's deliberately avoiding me. Please tell this coward that if he doesn't have the courage to talk to me in the next 30 seconds, I'll make plans for tomorrow night with someone else," Jennifer said with mock disappointment. Unfortunately, I was unable to contact Eric. "Maybe I can help you with something. What are your plans for tomorrow?" asked Tom. "No plans," Jennifer replied. "Why don't we meet at the Grand Bar at 7? Will that suit you?" Tom asked playfully. "And how can I recognize you?" "I am looking forward to our date with pleasure and impatience. Just so you know, I'm tall, blonde, and slim," Jennifer replied. "Please keep in mind that I can only meet during the day," Tom said. "I have the opportunity to go to a friend's apartment in the city, so we can continue our date if we like each other," Tom added. "I don't recognize you." "I don't think you're Eric's colleague," Jennifer said thoughtfully. "My name is Thomas Westman, and I'll be waiting for you at the Grand. I'm coming in a black BMW," Tom said. "Good. I look forward to meeting you," Jennifer replied. An overly patient man easily bought into our deception, even pretending to know Eric. I finally solved the riddle, and now it was easy to gather information about him. Benny and I found out that he is currently married to a school teacher, and his son plays on the same football team as mine. He works as a real estate agent, as evidenced by his luxury BMW and large house. Despite his wealth, he looks like an ordinary man in his 40s. Benny suggested a suitable punishment for him, but we decided to wait until he was connected to other suspects. Lola tried to contact him via text message, but after receiving no response, she tried to reach him twice unsuccessfully before sending another message. "Dear, please contact me at your earliest opportunity." It turned out that recent communication had caused a noticeable shift in his affection for her, reducing his once strong love for Lola to a casual infatuation. She was deceived by his false declarations of love. That evening, Lola and I tried to find common ground in conversation. After checking her phone with my program, I found 2 unsuccessful attempts to reach Tom. "Dear, please call me as soon as possible," Lola kept saying, over and over again, with no reply. I couldn't help but feel sorry for her. She had fallen so much in love with this jerk, who now spat on her when she needed him most. The next morning, I suggested that she move out of the bedroom until one of us could find a new place to stay. She agreed without argument, but I could see that she was not happy with the idea that she would have to leave. Trying to cheer her up, I mentioned an acquaintance of mine, Thomas Westman, whose son played on the same football team as ours and who worked as a real estate agent. I offered to contact him on her behalf. Although Lola did not appreciate my well-intentioned offer, she seemed to understand that I knew about her lover. While it was probably inappropriate to tease her, I found it relatively harmless compared to the collapse of her second marriage. During lunch, I decided to check my phone and noticed that there were no new text messages. However, I saw 6 successful attempts to call Tom's cell phone, 6 short calls to his office, and 2 calls to the school. It was clear that his interest in her had completely disappeared. On Friday morning, Cecilia Westman called me and told me that she was married to Thomas Westman, the man who was having an affair with my wife. I was already aware of the situation and couldn't help but think that if I were him, I would pack up and leave town as soon as possible. "Did you know that your wife completely lost her temper when she came to his office yesterday after work? She threw a printer in his face, and he had to go to the hospital," Cecilia told me. "No, I think she was already asleep when I got home very late. She didn't talk about anything at breakfast today," I replied. "Nevertheless, I would like to discuss our problems with you. How about we meet at the bar at 7 o'clock today?" asked Cecilia. "Why not? 7 suits me," I replied. I arrived right on schedule and immediately noticed her with a child who attended the same football school as my son, which made my search easier. She was a bright woman in her 40s, impeccably dressed, and radiated the confidence of an experienced professional. I offered her a drink, and she kindly agreed. We chatted casually during our conversation. She casually mentioned that she had a hotel room and offered to move our conversation there to talk in private. Without hesitation, I agreed. An hour later, after she took the child away, we were in her room sitting at a small table, and then she spoke. "How long have you known?" she asked. I admitted that I had had suspicions for several weeks, but they were only confirmed yesterday. She shared that she had also found out about it yesterday after my wife caused a scandal in his office. I informed her that I had started the divorce process and asked about her intentions. She replied that she wanted to get divorced as soon as possible. She was categorically against the use of physical force and remembered that the day before, in Thomas's office, she had heard Lola shouting about my alleged intentions towards him. She doubted me, asking, "Is this true?" I refused to admit anything without concrete evidence that I was wrong, and I was sure that I wasn't the only one who wanted to take action against him. "Most likely, this is not true. Although he persistently insisted that your wife is the only one with whom he has ever cheated," Cecilia said. This statement was ridiculous. I instructed my secretary to simulate dialing the wrong number, and he did not hesitate to charm her into agreeing to a date. "Can I convince you to reconsider your intentions to enter into conflict with him if I suggest a more peaceful way of communicating?" she asked. I nodded in agreement, expressing my rejection of physical confrontations and stating that Lola's actions the day before had been enough. When they got married, her parents made a generous contribution to their house and his business, and almost all of their property was put in her name so that he wouldn't get anything. She insisted on sole custody of their son, allowing Thomas to visit him only on weekends. It was a difficult situation, but she thought she deserved it. Then she suggested, "If you agree with my plan, I ask you to spend the night with me in this room so that I can honestly say that we spent the night together. We will decide for ourselves where to sleep, whether in bed or on the couch. Will you keep this a secret?" Her unexpected offer took me by surprise. I nodded in agreement, promising to keep our relationship a secret. When I settled in bed, she took a bottle of champagne out of her bag. Her smile was sweet and inviting. We shared the fizzy drink, having a pleasant conversation until the bottle was empty. Cecilia then expressed her willingness to leave for the night. I felt her gaze beckoning me to join her in bed, and without hesitation, I obeyed. Turning off the light, she gently asked if I wanted to cuddle with her until morning. I agreed without hesitation, knowing full well that this could potentially lead to something more. It had been years since I'd been emotionally close to anyone other than Lola, but Cecilia brought a sense of renewal after I found out about my wife's infidelity. That evening, we shared 2 intimate moments. We quickly arranged another date, scheduled for next Wednesday, as Cecilia had prior commitments to visit her sister over the weekend. When I returned home on Saturday morning, Lola did not ask about my whereabouts. Instead, she invited me to dinner to discuss our practical issues. Later in the evening, I suggested rescheduling the conversation to Sunday, referring to plans with friends who were going to invite me somewhere to cheer up. They had booked a table at a hotel where a prestigious musical ensemble was to perform. To my surprise, I noticed Annie in the bar, and she looked amazing, accompanied by 3 friends. Despite my initial doubts, I plucked up the courage and asked her to dance. Going to her table, I handed over the invitation, and to my surprise, she hesitantly agreed. As we swayed to the rhythm of the slow melody, she didn't leave my side for a step. After the dance, we had a peaceful conversation in the bar. Taking risks had always been part of my motto, so when she accepted my offer to dance for the last time, I was stunned. I knew that Dan had broken up with her because of me, so I expected her to hold a grudge. But she agreed to dance with me anyway, and I was puzzled but grateful for the opportunity. Her agreeing to the last dance meant she was ready to walk me home, which she did. She radiated sensuality that evening, and I didn't pay attention to the fact that her intention was to annoy Lola. Annie and I were both going through a divorce and were free in our desires without any restrictions. When we arrived at her house, she hugged me tightly and confessed I wanted you because I was jealous of Lola. We are here, and the time has come, now or never. I understand, I replied, and soon we were in her bedroom, enjoying a pleasant end to the evening. As we lay there after the intense passion that engulfed us, she began to express her disapproval of Lola's decision to cheat on me with a man like Thomas. I confessed my feelings to her, but she kindly refused me, saying, "Please don't, because I have a date with a man tomorrow, and I think he might propose to me. If he agrees, I will gladly say yes and promise to be a faithful wife. In the meantime, let's enjoy this night together and make it truly unforgettable." Annie added, and she became unforgettable. This incredible night will stay with me forever. When I returned home on Sunday morning, Lola was calm, and I immediately went to bed, feeling satisfied and looking forward to a relaxing holiday. My parents chose not to get involved in our differences with Lola, and they kindly looked after our children while Lola and I had a peaceful dinner together. Despite the temptation, I tried to maintain a respectful and platonic relationship with Lola. The conversation at dinner was pleasant and mainly concerned our children and their well-being. Later, Lola asked me about filing for divorce and the reasons for it, showing genuine interest in my personal life. I stated that I wanted an equal division in all respects, including joint custody of our children. I suggested that one of us keep a house for themselves so that the children would have a permanent home, but at the same time, they could spend time with the other parent. Lola agreed to my terms without objection, and I agreed to her condition that we would never use our children as pawns or raise our voices at them. She asked, "What are your intentions with Thomas? You hit him hard, and Cecilia is not going to press charges for damaging her belongings. According to her lawyer's forecasts, when they're done with him, Thomas will be left with nothing. He has no property, not even a share in their property, no house, no savings, no BMW, no bike. Everything was bought with the company's funds, and all the shares in the business belonged exclusively to Cecilia." I replied, "How well do you know Cecilia?" Lola asked in disbelief. "I actually know her pretty well." "Hopefully," I replied. "Is there any chance that you will forgive me and reconsider the decision to divorce?" Lola asked with hope and sadness in her eyes. "The last chance was last Sunday morning. Although it was very painful for me then, when you hesitated for no more than a few seconds before leaving me, it felt like you had plunged a knife into my heart," I replied. "En réalité, Lola, you are a wonderful woman in many ways, and I will miss you very much. Unfortunately, I have to admit that I cannot continue to live with you after all the suffering that you have caused me," I confessed. She acknowledged the consequences of her infidelity, which affected a total of 11 people, including 6 adults and 5 children. Tears dripped from her eyes as she expressed sincere remorse and understanding of her actions. Despite her sincere apologies, Lola did not talk about the motives of her affair with Thomas, nor how it began or what happened between them. She admitted that her action was stupid and that she deeply regretted it. It is unclear whether her regret was caused by being caught and facing the consequences, or whether she realized that Thomas had selfish motives for the affair. With the help of modern voice recorders and a Trojan program on her phone, I revealed Lola's secret relationship. After removing the recorder from her car and cleaning my phone, I decided to end my planned revenge on Thomas. With Benny's help, I managed to come up with a reliable alibi. 2 weeks later, Cecilia found a beautiful apartment and moved out of the house. She made me a generous offer to buy out her share of the house, to which I agreed. Our relationship was preserved, but unfortunately, our children didn't become very close. We couldn't live in the same house together. Thomas moved to another city to get a job at his brother's construction company. I kept my word and decided not to date him anymore after he started a relationship with Lola. Annie and Mankey got married, and Cecilia and I were invited to a party at his hotel to celebrate their move together. Annie mentioned that Lola was upset when she found out about my relationship with Cecilia. She even called Annie in a rage, accusing her of trying to seduce me for one night. If Lola had asked me about it, I would have admitted that I was really looking forward to that night. Currently, Lola and I have friendly relations, mainly related to our children, but there was a moment in the past when she questioned my motives after I started dating Cecilia and spent the night with Annie. I assured her that my dates were not motivated by a desire for revenge. I explained that as a single middle-aged man, I appreciated the companionship I found in these relationships. Lola looked at me with a knowing expression and smiled faintly, letting me know that she understood. I realized that Lola sincerely wanted to restore our relationship. She shared with a mutual friend her intention to remain single for at least 3 years, focusing solely on waiting for me and not seeking a new relationship. Lola continued to spend nights with different men. Apparently, she wanted to diversify her intimacy. Soon, Lola found out that she was sick. She had contracted an HIV infection. A black streak began in her life soon after that. Lola got into a car accident and, for a long time, couldn't move on her own. While she was recovering her health, Lola lost a lot of weight. She looked sick and pathetic, and in a way, she deserved it.